Josh is once again installing Gentoo, but will probably blow it up before the day is over. I hate...
What do you mean? It's already installed.
I hate DaVinci Resolve and... well, cats. Cue the music.
Yep. Hey guys, welcome to No Talks Allowed. I am your host Josh, and today I brought with me the chief editor of this show, Bigpod.
Hello.
Now, Bigpod, you're going to hate this episode because you have to edit this episode in DaVinci Resolve as well, just like the last one, which I know you've got some opinions about.
And so many.
Yeah, but tell you what. We're gonna save the audience's opinions on this for later, when we get more experience with DaVinci Resolve and editing in DaVinci Resolve. That way, we can have a more objective review of DaVinci Resolve as a piece of software. So we're not gonna be doing that yet, but that's coming up, because after that, then we're gonna be trying Kdenlive just for the fun of it, because it's a Linux podcast. We gotta try our Linux tools at some point.
But if episodes are late, I'm so sorry. It's Kden. It's either DaVinci Resolve's or Kdenlive's fault.
It's not gonna be Kdenlive's fault, because I know what I'm doing in Kdenlive, sort of.
I'm supposed to know in DaVinci Resolve as well, but I still hate it.
Oh, okay. Well, hey, you know what? Let's talk about the news today, because did you know that it's a big distro release day, Bigpod?
Yeah.
All right. So, in the case you didn't know, it is April, which means that we have a new version of Ubuntu coming out. This is the .04 Ubuntu version. The non-LTS one. Yeah, and because this is an odd year, this is actually one to actually watch, because this is when they try stuff. So today, Canonical has dropped Ubuntu 25.04. The most notable thing about this release that they're probably not even actually mentioning is that this is the release that they should be using the Rust tools that we previously talked about on the show, where they're replacing the core utils with the new Rust alternatives.
Yep.
So, if you're an Ubuntu user and you're curious about this is actually a version of Ubuntu worth using, because Canonical probably actually needs the feedback for switching to these tools, making sure that things work. And
if
of course,
they are using the new thing.
Yeah, that said, this is a release version of Ubuntu and it's a point update, so there's probably already going to be at least a fraction amount of people moving to this release, previously using 24.10. So let's pack into what this distro is using. It's obviously this is the GNOME 48 release, and as far as I know, they're using all the version 48 version of all the GNOME utilities, rather than holding some of them back. So that's pretty cool. And then they're changing the PDF reader from Evans to Papers. Because apparently porting Evans to GTK4 was a lot taller of an issue than people thought it would be. So they just made a new one, which, hey, whatever, it's fine. Of course, we've also got the Linux 6.14 kernel, which I believe is newer than what the next distro we're talking about is even shipping out of the box. And we officially have the brand new installer for Ubuntu on a release version. As in, this is the one and only installer. You can't go back to the old Ubiquity installer. I looked. You could find a version of Ubuntu with the Ubiquity installer for 24.10, but I haven't found one for 25.04 yet.
Yeah.
So, good luck if you prefer the Ubiquity installer for some reason.
Interestingly, I just noticed they also are using a new they have a new scheduler, the Shed AXT.
Yeah, they're using Shed EXT, which provides a mechanism for implementing scheduling policies as eBPF programs. I don't know what that is. Maybe Bigpod knows.
Berkeley package filter. It's essentially the easiest way to say it is a programming language for the kernel.
Okay.
It's just in time compiled, kind of like your JavaScript, and it is basically more or less an intermediary language. You can, as far as I understand, you can write basically in any language eBPF code, and then compile it to eBPF, and then goes like JITs to an actual kernel module, essentially, or some kernel code for, let's say, networking, like a package filtering, which is why it's called package filter, or something like this. But not sure. I'm not exactly on the up and up with the eBPF stuff. That's
a little bit lower level than what I've seen you normally work with.
Yeah, that's too
and then
low level for me.
Yep, and then they're shipping a newer version of the NT Sync driver as well, which has proven to deliver better performance than Windows games running through the wonderful translation layers of Wine and Proton. And then, of course, the BPF tools and Linux perf tools have been decoupled from the kernel version, making those things a little bit easier to maintain, because now that they don't have that hard dependency on Linux version. It just depends on Linux, which is how it's supposed to be. And then, of course, it's an Ubuntu point release, so you got all the wonderful new versions of packages. So you have the latest Python, Golang, Rust, .NET, LLVM, OpenJDK, and GCC, just in case you ever need them.
You also have some early access upstream versions for, let's say, GCC 15, OpenJDK 24, and 25 early access. Interesting.
Yeah, so if for some reason you're a developer and you're looking at those newer versions up there, like that GCC version 15, and you have this wonderful C code that you've been maintaining for 20 plus years, and you want to make sure that still works in the future, probably now is a good time to start looking at that. And glad to see that Ubuntu's at least willing to ship that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's some networking tools that they talked about here. I don't care enough about those to actually talk about them. And of course, they're going to talk about this hardware enablement highlights as well. It's a newer version of Linux. Of course, there's going to be newer versions of drivers in there. They're talking up like the Intel Arc 500 series GPUs. So that just natively comes with Linux 6.14. They just put it in the announcement post because
looks good.
Normies. It looks good for the normies. And then, of course, there's a bit more of a security focus as well with this release too, supporting AMD's SEV SNP on virtualization host, meaning that you have a better performance off of encrypted QEMU virtual machines
for deployment of confidential VMs on premises stuff. Basically encrypted and secured in some very interesting ways by the CPU and hardware.
Yes. And so that's it for Ubuntu. But there's another distro that released as well.
Yep. And
that is a distro that Bigpod and myself both follow fairly closely, and probably you should a little bit too if you're listening to this show. And that's Fedora. This is now the fourth release in a row Fedora that actually shipped on time.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. What happened to Fedora? Like, that used to never happen.
They got good.
They must have. So, of course, Fedora 42 came out, and they made all the references to 42. Talked about 75,000 generations ago, their ancestors setting a vast computer in motion, asking it to produce the ultimate Linux distribution. I think they're joking about that because people do have issues with Fedora that are understandable. But they're talking about 42 because 42 is the meaning of life, and the universe and everything. And they give you a couple examples of how you can just upgrade from Fedora 41 to 42, which for the most part is a good solid process. Even when you're going from Fedora 40 to 42 on an ARM basis, and you haven't turned on in 6 months. And the big change here for Fedora is that when you're looking at like that big flagship version of Fedora now, it's no longer just GNOME. You actually see KDE there, and the download button for the KDE version actually works now.
Yeah, and it's right beside the download button for Workstation. But there are some other new things as well, like you have another spin, this time for Cosmic.
Yes.
With its accompanying Atomic version, which is what I like.
Yes, so Bigpod and I are probably both going to be looking at this desktop at some point because I'm personally excited for like some of the features that Cosmic is coming out with, and it's a tool of curiosity for Bigpod, and I know that he's been watching the development of Cosmic as well because they're coming out with a lot of super exciting features.
Yeah, and more importantly, it is made with the same or at least similar ideas as GNOME. Not it gets out of your way. At least it went out of my way whenever I used it in past.
Is that because it crashed?
No, because it just got out of the way. Didn't want me to work on it constantly, like something like KDE wants of you.
Okay. KDE, so many options that you just never stop looking at them.
Yes.
All right.
So everything needs to be set, otherwise it's not okay.
Now, obviously,
same defaults, everybody. But there is a problem. There was a last-minute warning.
What? No way.
Yeah. Essentially, if you boot into the live media, what it does, it adds a UEFI boot entry.
Uh-oh. Now, when you say UEFI boot entry, because they just say UEFI bootloader, that for a thing that's not on the local system, how concerned about this should we be actually? Is this going to break Grub?
No, this has nothing to do with Grub. This is the when you boot and you spam F12 and the menu for whatever you have installed on your system, let's say you want to boot into the USB, shows up.
Yeah.
That's the UEFI bootloader they're talking about. Because as we discussed previously, including when we had the Tomasz Zaman here on the podcast, and before when I was talking about bootloaders, UEFI has its own bootloader, which then boots grub, which then boots shim, which then boots the kernel. It's a whole, or is it boot shim, which then boots grub? I don't know. It's a whole cluster.
It's a whole process
of things that have of bootloaders, because even shim is a bootloader.
Fun fact for you guys that are like looking to get those professional certifications for Linux desktops, the LPI exam does ask you how a Linux operating system boots. So that's important to learn.
Yes. So first you have a UEFI bootloader, then you have your second stage bootloader, then you have your shim, your grub, your second stage grub, and then you have kernel. And in between that you have an initramfs. So yes, it's an involved process.
Yeah, but it's a whole involved process.
Yes. So on that first thing, that also sometimes known as UEFI boot manager list, and that happens because of the other thing, the shim having a self-healing process they didn't turn off for the ISO.
All right. So, honestly, is this going to be like an issue that breaks your system?
No.
Most likely, no. But
Definitely
it's going to be
not.
it's going to be a cosmetic issue, if anything. So it's not all that bad. But it's just a thing to keep in mind. And of course, they do give you like workarounds in like the Fedora magazine article that I have linked in the show notes on how to fix that with not completely breaking your system.
Yeah.
Assuming, of course, you read the instructions correctly, of course, because you're messing around with UEFI variables. So it's kind of important to do that. And of course, this is Fedora. You got to remember, this is Fedora. Even though they call it a stable release, that doesn't mean that other issues might crop up. Because Fedora is the one distro that just goes out and tries things, and sometimes they don't make a super big deal about the thing that they're trying, but they're trying it anyway. So it's important to be willing to install Fedora. If you're willing to install Fedora 42 this early, it's important to know that you might run into bugs and be willing to at least help Fedora figure out that those bugs exist. So please make sure that you can go and report the bugs when you find them. That's always useful. And there is also a change in leadership for the Fedora project.
Yeah.
We just want to cover this real quick. Matthew Miller has been the project leader of Fedora for over 10 years now at this point, if I remember correctly. And he's stepping down from his leadership position, and they are pulling in Jeff Spaleta now, who's going to be taking over. I'm not going to talk too much about like what Jeff has done for the Fedora project because I just don't know. But they do have a introductory article in Fedora magazine for him that I'll also have linked in the show notes. And now, Bigpod.
What?
It's time to talk about Google.
Oh no, Google again.
Yes,
what
Google
they have
again.
done now.
They haven't done anything. It's what a judge has done to Google because it finally happened. We got a verdict on like this long time article that we've been kind of passively discussing of the Fedora of the not Fedora but the Google monopoly lawsuit.
Now that would be an interesting monopoly
Fedora
lawsuit.
monopoly. Yeah. Okay, so I have it linked off to a Guardian article which gives a fairly top level thing, and of course I hit my click limit for it, so it's going to have a big giant watermark over it. But a judge has finally ruled that Google's advertising business, just the online advertising, is monopolistic, and has ordered Google to sell off the ad network.
Interesting.
Yes. So that's it. This isn't like the internet search engines, because Google also runs the top two. Well, Alphabet runs the top two because YouTube and Google are two separate companies. But Google search and YouTube search are the two most popular search engines on the internet. So that's a thing. Now, of course, when the judge said that the only thing that Google should do to come back into compliance selling off the Google Ad Manager, that is the publisher ad server and the ad exchange. So when you go on to say YouTube and you see an ad on YouTube, that's the Google ad server that is serving that video to you, and it is the ad exchange that negotiated with all those random wannabe advertisers to pick the ad and serve it to you.
So what you're saying is they need to sell their biggest profit center.
Yes, pretty much. Now, is this going to increase the price of YouTube Premium? They're going to use it as an excuse. Just forewarning you that too. Same thing with like Google Drive storage accounts that you might pay for, or if you're a business customer, Google Workspace is just going to go up again because it goes up every 6 months, so it's fine. You already expected that. Now, technically, that's what the judge said. Mostly as like a suggestion. Well, actually, the judge didn't say that. The Justice Department said that. So, the plaintiffs in the case. So, the judge will hold a trial next week, determining what to do with the Chrome web browser, and as well as the search engines. And of course, we're still going to have like more meetings as to what Google to figure out what Google needs to do.
So we're not done yet. Reporting.
No, we're not done yet. But we've got a verdict. We just need to sort out the punishment now.
First verdict is in. Now we're gonna see more.
Yeah, we're going to get more about this. So, Bigpod, we publish this podcast on YouTube, right? We're not monetized on YouTube because the account's just not eligible for monetization yet.
Yeah.
But what does this mean for like us? If say Google has to sell off like Google AdSense. Now,
very likely
I don't know.
The effect will be that for us nothing, since we're not monetized. For YouTubers who are monetized, could be huge, could be nothing.
Yes, anybody that makes any kind of decent income off of YouTube, they at this point they need to be paying attention because if they weren't paying attention before, they need to be now because their livelihoods could be at stake here. Because if Google AdSense even for like the largest channels, like I know Linus Tech Tips just did like their how they make money video lately. It's the first one that they've done in a while, and it's worth a look because they're a fairly large channel, and you can still see that Google AdSense income is still a sizable portion of their income.
Yeah,
and you don't want to just see that disappear. I mean, it's shrinking. The volume of it is shrinking for them. But at the same time, it's still like 15-20% of how much money they make, maybe more than that. And you don't want to just see like that just disappear. Not really. So it's worth a while just to look into this here. And I'm glad to see that like somebody cares about competition on the internet. It's going to suck for probably a little bit though, because that's sometimes how these things go. But I do think that at the end of the day, we're probably going to get better off about this because that Google AdSense payout. I've looked at the rates; they're nothing special. Like actually. So maybe internet advertising could be profitable again for these people that want to make use of advertising to make money on like their websites or
I highly doubt it. I don't think it is actually the fact that Google does it that is so cheap or they're cheap. It's very simply that there is enough space on the internet and not enough people advertising things. And of course you have brokers in between and those take money. Yes, Google takes money, of course, but I don't think you actually pay that much to Google compared to how much you pay to the end website.
That much is true. Alright, so we're done being on Google for a minute. Let's talk about like the Synology news, right? Now, if you don't know what a Synology is a hardware device that you typically use for like network attached storage, and it's fairly popular in like the prosumer space or the small business spaces, devices like these. And Synology is not a small name in this namespace whatsoever. So, when Ars posted this article, it got me looking at this because they've been trending this direction for a while now. So Synology not only sells like the NAS devices, but they also sell like a series of self-branded hard drives as well. And they're finally having a certified drive requirement for features on hard drives.
Oh.
Now, yes.
Hmm.
Now, Synology makes use of, I believe Synology makes use of this little known advanced file system called ButterFS,
Yeah.
which does a lot of the things already. So, basically, what it's looking at here is that they're going to be like locking like functions and features of the hard drive. So maybe like the smart data or in self-testing stuff like that. Or I don't think that they're probably going to go as far as like limiting read and write speeds, because heaven forbid, hard drives are already kind of slow to begin with.
Yeah.
Well, individual hard drives, so it won't really matter that much.
I'm thinking, what kind of features would a hard drive have that you could log behind a certification?
The only thing that I can think of is smart data.
Yeah, but still, that doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't. But
Maybe
when
only thing they could think of is self-encryption, but that's hardware based, not, and they cannot really stop it. The other thing really,
well, let's talk about this, right? Because they cover this a little bit here too. Now, Synology does have a working model for this on some of their devices, more specifically like the rack-mounted models, so like the big ones that cost lots of money. So, and people have said that if you're not using a Synology-approved hard drive or non-certified hard drive, you'll run into issues with like pool creation or issues with deduplication, lifespan analysis, automatic HDD firmware updates. So it's not necessarily like drive features that they're limiting, it's file system limitations that they're imposing. So you won't be able to extend a pool to it. Instead, if it's a non-certified drive, you'll have a separate pool on just that drive. You might not be able to attach it to like a RAID array. Deduplication, that's built into the file system.
yeah.
Why are they disabling it? Lifespan analysis, that's smart data. And automatic firmware updates, well, that's what FWFD can do. So they're disabling that. Now, here's the kicker, right? I checked earlier. There are only like 3 actual companies still making hard drives. Hard drives, not solid state disks.
Yes, so
Do you know what those 3 are?
Western and Digital. The other one is Seagate.
Yeah.
And the third one, I know it's not AGST or Toshiba, which is what I'm looking at right now, because I know those two don't do it anymore. So,
What if I told you that Toshiba still makes hard drives?
wait, Toshiba still make hard drives?
Yes, you know all those cheap white brand hard drives?
Wait,
Those are the
really?
Toshibas.
Well,
Yes.
I have a Toshiba somewhere. I think on one of my systems.
It's Toshiba, Seagate, and Western
NAS
Digital.
drive. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Now, of course, if you can get one of those old Toshiba Enterprise drives, those things will just last forever. I've never actually seen a Toshiba Enterprise drive die. And we're talking about a guy that has messed around with like old mainframes from like the late 80s that had Toshiba hard drives that were still rocking. So, there's only 3 of those, and Synology's self-branded versions of them are just Toshiba and Seagate models. So you might be able to do like some firmware hacks to, get these drives to work with these file systems. If you use Western Digital drives, which I know are very popular among like the self-hosting space,
And like they have been one of the most popular brands since like I can remember, when it comes to
for a while.
enterprise brands of hard drives.
Yeah. Yeah, you're kind of on your own for this, so maybe this is just another reason for me to never buy a Synology NAS, because for one thing, I don't really need one because I know how to do all this stuff manually.
Yeah, it isn't just that. It's like there's a reason you would buy a NAS, like a off-the-shelf NAS. One, if you do not want to mess with things. I get that.
Yeah.
This is the same reason why an enterprise would want to buy something like that. Like, I understand a small company to buy an 8-base Synology, but at the same time, I would personally say to them, get yourself an IT person and buy a, I don't know, 45 drives chassis or a random chassis of internet and just put a computer inside it.
Yeah,
But then
honestly,
again, the problem is you have to then employ a person, an entire Bigpod or Josh, that all they do is manage that server and maybe 2 other computers or 5 other computers. That doesn't go well together with the small business model.
well, or you could do or you could just hire a contractor to come and do that. Like,
Of course, yes, you
so
can a, a Bigpod services.
yeah, Bigpod services or Josh services, or if you want like a more famous example, a Lawrence Systems
Yes.
services.
Yes.
So you could go that route, and basically they're just a team of guys now come around and manage your server for you.
Yeah, and so
And
often
they may or may
fix
not
things.
deploy Synology on your stack, but if there's any issues with the Synology, then you have a phone number.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So and of course, it's not to say that we don't have like these turnkey solutions that we can do ourselves. That's literally what TrueNAS is.
Yeah.
TrueNAS is like the biggest name for like DIY network attached storage.
And that's literally one of the vendors I was talking about, 45 drives. That's literally what they are, a turnkey solution for a bit more complex scenarios instead of what something like Synology offers.
Yeah, and honestly, TrueNAS does see enterprise use. So if you're wanting to manage data at the enterprise level, it's worthwhile to mess around with TrueNAS, and probably learn a little bit of that command line that TrueNAS exposes as well too, because that's always worthwhile. Because sometimes the TrueNAS interface, as cohesive as it is, does not show you all the examples of ZFS, but because you can do some like really cool stuff, cool and deep stuff with ZFS if you take the time to actually learn it. Not that you presumably ever should have to, but it's there. So why not take a look?
For
Now,
most use cases, you don't need to. And if you really are needing of do it yourself, there's always the what's that operating system that Linus Tech Tips guy
yes,
talks about the
I think it's HexOS or something like
Hex OS thing. Yes.
that. Yeah,
I
HexOS.
wouldn't recommend it, but that's an option as well if you really want a something true NAS, but you really do not want to deal with it at all.
I mean, honestly, I'm still a big fan of the 100% DIY route, where you just install any Linux distribution, figure out what packages you need to install, and then figure out how to edit the Etsy exports files for your NFS shares, your Etsy Samba.com files for your Samba shares.
Again,
That's what I do. And you
again,
know what?
that is
That's
not
all
a good
free.
idea inside a company.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure.
Okay. I mean, it's probably not a good idea, but it is an idea that you can do. I honestly don't know how many of our listeners actually do this stuff at the company level, but if you do, let us know. And because I've always been curious as to like what it's actually like to work in this space, and how many times you just rebooting a server or a system actually works, because sometimes you kind of just wonder. So now, if you would like to send us your employment status or, even potentially sponsor us, you can send us an email to this email address right here, contact@tuckspace.com. It's somewhere over here. Maybe it's over here. Maybe it's over there. Maybe it's up there. Who knows? It matters because, we're using a new editor for this, so things might be different.
Yes. We're bringing in a backup editor for times when the main editor doesn't have enough energy to do things.
Yes. So we're doing that because, why not? And, of course, if you would like to talk with each other, we do have a Discord space available. It's obviously our viewer base is still kind of small, so people don't really talk in it very often. But every now and then, say hi to us. It's not like I never not look at our Discord. I actually look at it fairly often. And I would like to talk with people. I sometimes feel a little bit lonely here. Same with you, Bigpod. You probably feel a little lonely staring at the Discord screen. Yeah, that's what I thought. And of course, if you would like to support us, because we do things the hard way on this show, you can give us money at patreon.com/notucksallowed. And in fact, if you give us enough money, maybe Bigpod can maybe I can justify Tuckspace paying Bigpod's Adobe subscription. That way he doesn't have to mess around with DaVinci Resolve.
Please.
You know what? If you pay double that amount, we will force Bigpod to learn Kden Live and use Kden Live. Because I want to see it happen. I legitimately think that we could edit this show just as good in Kden Live as we can in Adobe. It just might be a little bit of different workflow. That's all it is.
Yes, we could, but the question is how bold I'll be before and after.
Well, that's always one way to find out. And of course, we're going to be deploying a couple more things here for us working internally as well, which may or may not eventually raise the cost of our hosting. So it always gives us a little. So by you donating to us on Patreon, you give us that little buffer right there for if we do that, because we're always looking for ways that Bigpod and I can develop this show a little bit better for you. So, and of course we're looking at currently we're looking at collaborative note editing tools, which
for text and stuff.
Yeah, that's just going to be for us. Not necessarily for you, but if you don't donate enough money on us with Patreon, we might just make a Nextcloud and eventually just put Nextcloud behind Access on a Patreon tier. I'm not opposed to it as
Maybe.
Things grow. Or if you have your own podcast, we have our own podcast distribution service. We could just put your podcast on it for you.
Mail. You already heard the contact@tuckspace.com mail us.
Yeah,
I would be happy to onboard you.
Which, you know what? It also gives us testing ahead of time if your podcast is particularly big. That way we know how scalable our current solution is.
Yeah.
To be truthful, we don't actually know. But there's always one way to find out.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to it. In the meantime, that's pretty much going to be it for the show today. Not quite, an hour long like we sometimes do. But hey, you know what? That's just how it goes sometimes. So, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go blow up Gentoo now and install me some Fedora because, I got an email from a couple of Fedora maintainers that want me to test some things. So I'm going to be testing some things. And it's best done via hardware because I'm messing with drivers again.
Josh.
Hey, this is why we have good backups. I'll see you later.
Goodbye.